Deputy President. This inquiry into the management of cat populations in New South Wales found there was nearly 5 million cats in Australia. Just under a million feral cats living in urban areas, and there could be north of 5 million cats living in the bush. Cats are a huge problem in New South Wales, as they are throughout the whole of Australia, and there are far too many cats. Ideally, there would be none. Well, no feral cats anyhow. This is acknowledged to some degree by the first finding of the report. There is an urgent need to implement cat management strategies in New South Wales to address the overpopulation of cats, both in urban environments and in the wild. Now, that's obviously a true statement, but we did push to take that a little bit further, and it's unfortunate that we couldn't. But at least it does acknowledge that urgent action is needed. We heard a lot about the confusion around terminology when it comes to different subgroups of cats. While all cats in Australia are the same species, felis, catus, we see a range of different terminology used by stakeholders. There's feral, wild, unowned, semi-owned, owned, domestic, contained. There's social cats, unsocial cats, farm cats, tip cats, street cats, and pets. This causes a great deal of confusion and lack of clarity around cat management in this state. This is recognised by the Federal Department of Environment, who in their 2024 threat abatement plan for predation by feral cats refer to just two classes of cats, feral and pets. Now that's feral cats that survive by hunting or scavenging and are not fully owned by people, and pet cats, those owned by people or persons with needs wholly supplied by their owners. Having these definitions implemented and adopted would make management of cats a lot simpler, giving clarity much needed and much wanted by the control authorities. We should adopt this approach in New South Wales, and I'm disappointed the final report didn't include a recommendation to do as much despite efforts. It does recognise the confusion, but did not recommend addressing this problem, a massive missed opportunity. Trap, neuter, release programs, or trap, neuter, return, whatever they want to call them. We spent far too long on this suggestion that should be rejected straight out of the hand. The concept to trap, desex and release feral cats back into the wild is deeply flawed. It diverts money and effort from programs that actually reduce cat numbers. Released cats continue to hunt and kill native animals. Some advocates even suggest feeding these cats, but that ignores the court issue that they remain predators. So what are they eating while they're out there? Lizards and birds? Scraps out of the bins that they tip over? The report cited in support of this a case study run by campus cats at Uni of New South Wales. They talked about reducing the cat population from around 70 to just 8. Now in a small area, perhaps that's not insignificant. But that's over 16 years. 16 years to remove 60 cats. And let's look at the cost as well, that again they put forward in this. They talked about a relatively modest annual expenditure. This includes veterinary costs, $4,250, cat food, $2,500, admin costs, $800. So that's just over $7,500 a year over 16 years, so more than $120,000 for 60 cats, more than $2,000 per cat removed. And remember, this is a volunteer program as well, so if you put a real dollar value on the resources that have gone into this, it's much, much higher. So then imagine extrapolating this over all the cats we need to remove, even from just urban New South Wales. There is a much more effective and immediate method that could have been employed at the point of first contact to remove these cats. Trap, neuter, release doesn't work. We could see that with the credible evidence that was put forward by the government submissions. It soaks up resources that could be far better spent making an actual difference to the problem, and those employing the technique are actually in breach of the Biosecurity Act at the very least. It's a concept that we shouldn't be considering at all, and we spent far too long talking about it throughout this inquiry, and I'll spend far too long talking about it now. Part of the problem with pet cats we have in New South Wales is the lack of registration. Only half are microchipped and a quarter are registered. For context, all sheep in New South Wales are required to have an electronic tag for tracing and biosecurity purposes. Every single one. Yet only half our pet cats are chipped. Now that's not good enough, and we should expect more from our cat owners in New South Wales. We clearly didn't need an inquiry to determine there's a problem with roaming cats in this state. They kill wildlife, expand feral population, spread disease and create community nuisance. According to the Invasive Species Council, roaming pet cats kill more than 3 animals each week, about 180 a year, including 110 natives. Evidence in the report told us of cats wearing collars, endangering pygmy possum populations, bandicoots and penguins, destroying nests and eggs, killing young birds, lizards and frogs. Yet there are people who contain their cats. Statistics vary, but let's say about 50% of people believe they contain their cats. That's in line with research from the Cat Protection Society, or at least they believe they contain their cats. The Biodiversity Council told us 39% of cats were out roaming when their owners thought they were at home. So more than half of pet cats are out roaming bushland, killing animals and causing a nuisance. This is unacceptable. Under Section 22 of the New South Wales Biosecurity Act, anyone who owns a cat and lets it roam is likely breaching their general biosecurity duty. The Act states that anyone who deals with biosecurity matter, that's any living thing other than human, who ought reasonably know the biosecurity risk, should take steps to prevent, eliminate or minimise that risk. Cat owners surely know their animals are hunters and killers, so need to stop them from having an adverse effect on the economy, environment or community, which roaming cats purely do. The gap lies in enforcement. Who is responsible for ensuring compliance? Councils, biosecurity officers? With limited resources, it's unclear how this duty is to be enforced. That certainly leaves a major gap in managing this problem. Cat containment laws are a logical step forward. Sadly, the report fails to communicate their benefits clearly. Unfortunately, readers of the report will not get a true sense of the benefits that would come from cat containment, supported by many groups ranging from councils, CWA through to birdwatchers. There were amendments moved to try and reflect these views in the report, but these were blocked, as were other amendments surrounding cat containment. Despite the efforts, finding 6 states, there is insufficient evidence that mandatory cat containment laws or cat curfew at a state or local government level are effective in reducing the number of free-roaming cats and therefore reducing impacts on wildlife. This is clearly garbage. How can it not make a difference? This is a finding that serves no purpose other than trying to protect the government from having to act on this problem. How can keeping cats in people's homes, off the street, out of urban bushland, away from other feral populations, not reduce the number of free-roaming cats and the impacts they have on wildlife? Dogs can't just roam the streets, killing animals. Horses can't walk up to people's verandas and leave a mess on the steps. So why should cats get some special exemption? Evidence showed significant support for containment, and that shows further why we should have gone further with that amendment. We're not talking about forcing councils to implement compulsory cat containment, just giving the ability to do so in line with the views of Blue Mountains and Tweed Heads councils, for example. We heard much about educating owners on responsible pet care, but as the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation noted, the real barrier is resources, not knowledge. This may sound harsh, but if someone doesn't have the resources to responsibly care for a cat, perhaps they shouldn't have one. Taxpayers shouldn't have to cover the costs. Furthermore, if people don't have the resources, what happens to these cats when something goes wrong? They pick up a disease from nearby feral cats, or the bird they're trying to kill fights back and knocks out an eye. Cats can get expensive, so if someone doesn't have the resources to deal with these issues, what happens then? If it comes down to a choice between cats and our native animals, I will choose our natives every single time. Everything we can do to reduce the impacts of cat on wildlife, we should do. This inquiry was an opportunity to take real steps towards protecting native wildlife. While it raised awareness, it stopped short of the strong, practical recommendations it needed. We need to move beyond sympathy for feral cats and towards meaningful action. Containment, enforcement, and clear definitions are achievable, effective, and urgently needed. We owe it to our native species and to future generations to act decisively before it is too late.